I'm in the absolutely beautiful La Gomera. It is ridiculously gorgeous here. I'm getting sunburnt at 9 in the morning. So while I do that, I thought I would tell you about the Abingdon Marathon and how it went and just my reflections on it 2 weeks on as it is today. So I will take you through how it went and what I think about it. Hey everyone, if you were watching the videos before, you'll know I was going for 3:30, and if you saw the video of the race, you'll know that I managed 3:46. Should we walk around a bit? It's a bit less weird and a bit less awkward if I can walk around a bit, and you might get to see some of this gorgeous area as well, as long as I don't get, Jesus, fall down the stairs and break my neck or dive bombed by any massive bumblebees that have been enjoying doing that so far. So, yeah, walk down this little road. What could possibly go wrong? This remote, mountainous country road on my own with no phone and no water. So, morning of the race. I actually got a really good night's sleep the night before, which felt amazing. I went to bed really early, didn't watch any TV, we had the radio on, painted my nails, just chatted, but generally, yeah, no kind of overstimulation. Slept really well, woke up feeling really, really fresh and kind of nervous but excited. That was sort of overarching feeling. We went and picked up Charlie, and yeah, I was just so glad to have Charlie there at the event. You know, you can bounce your nerves off each other as well, like the other person who's there and doing it. The event was super well organised, so like really easy to get around the HQ and drop bags and all that kind of stuff. I did get caught in quite a long queue for the loos and had quite a big wobble in that queue, shed a little tear, and just turned to Nick, who was with me in the queue, and just said, I don't know what I said, something like I don't think I can do it, or not like I wasn't gonna. By the way, here's our house. And the gorgeous setting that we're in. I'm just doing this because a car's going past and I just feel too cringe talking to myself in front of people. And now the car's gone. Yeah, it wasn't like I can't do it, as in I'm not gonna do it, but I just really lost all belief that I could run 8-minute miles and it wasn't gonna cause me to blow up horrendously. I just really lost all that faith, kind of at a terrible time to lose it right at the last minute, but it happened and I just sort of let it happen within reason. Tried to distract myself, and then obviously there was only a couple of minutes by the time I got to the front of the queue to go for a quick wee and then run to the start. It's a real testament to like the spirit of events like that and other people, when it was quite easy to forget, you know, quite quickly once people started cheering and doing the countdown and all the kind of fun, jokey stuff that the event organisers tend to do on the start line. As soon as we got across the start, we started with a lap of the track, and that was great. Obviously, you're just trying to sort of settle into your pace and keep an eye on what you're doing and not going off too fast. And for me, as I'm sure it is for most people, the first 7 miles of your marathon you expect to be comfortable. You know, it's that marathon pace, kind of challenging, comfortable, but you do not expect to have any problems in the first 7 miles. I was absolutely kind of battered by, I don't know, let's call it a stitch, stomach, gastro type pain, either from the carbs I'd had the day before, or breakfast not quite sitting right, or whatever it was. Those first 7 miles were really painful, and as you know, obviously, again, this is the case for a lot of people, but my plan specifically was to use those first 7 miles to kind of harness them, to sort of tell myself how comfortable I feel and how strong I feel. And the fact was I didn't. I was like struggling to breathe, like not, you know, literally, but struggling to feel comfortable aerobically. So those first 7 miles really weren't fun at all. and I didn't feel good. So that kind of green quarter, as it was supposed to be, wasn't very green. Did have my first gel roughly on time, but I delayed it. It was sort of longer than 16 minutes. I was supposed to start it at like 15 minutes, and I was definitely like putting it off. I knew when I was supposed to have it, and I just delayed it because the thought of putting anything on top of this pain in my stomach was not desirable. So I didn't want to eat anything or drink anything, but I knew that I had to. So I got it down me at say 16, 17 minutes. And I was having water at the water stations, which were every, say, 3 miles. But as, you know, is normal when you've got like kind of stomach ache, you're not consuming as much as you should. So from the off, I'm not getting as much hydration as I wanted to, or as I'd planned to get. It's kind of setting the scene really for like when it got even harder later for me to remember that I had much less fuel and much less water on board than I would have had. Miles 8 to 14, I was still on pace and I was still having the stomach issues. They did seem to very gradually and very slightly ease up a bit. And also during that second quarter, although you're only approaching the halfway point, I would expect to feel, you know, some discomfort, certainly more than in miles 0 to 7. So weirdly, even though I felt still quite uncomfortable during that time, it was kind of allowed and I wasn't as worried or bothered by it. I was like, yeah, this is the orange zone, quarter 2, it's the orange zone. This is where you need to dial in. This is where it's going to start to get uncomfortable. And so I kind of let that happen. So miles 15 to 21 is what I was calling my blue zone. This is where I expected it to be one of the hardest. And it was. In a lot of ways. This was where my leg seized up, so my left knee just got this really random, sharp, sudden pain at about mile 15, and I really had to slow. So up until mile 14 I'd been running there or thereabouts 8-minute miles, but once my knee locked out, like, it wasn't something that I could battle through and keep up the 8-minute miles. It was really painful. And I think this is where, like, looking back on the whole race, I gained the most in terms of what I've learned about myself and what I've learned, I don't know, kind of about how to handle situations like that. But when I wanted to walk, I remembered and I really reminded myself that, like, one of my biggest goals was to not walk at all. So I didn't. I just kept going, and I allowed myself to slow down as, you know, as a compromise. But I kind of stayed with that feeling of wanting to walk and just carried on running. And it's a really kind of hard to explain feeling of like two things happening at once, where it was like, I want to walk and I'm carrying on running, and that's okay. So I didn't try and I didn't beat myself up and say like, you're not walking, like, don't walk, like any kind of negative like telling off of myself. And after a short while, which actually wasn't that long, that initial feeling of wanting to walk just faded. And then the pain in my knee faded. It didn't go completely. But I think something that I've always struggled with is when you get something like a sudden and sharp pain in your knee, and your knee feels like it's locked out and you're 15 miles into a marathon, that's it. And that knee is now going to hurt for the rest of the marathon. So that's it. You're just going to run and walk for the next 11 miles. And like, there's sort of nothing you can do about that. But it sort of came and went in a really manageable way. So not only did that physical pain kind of come and go, but the mental, like those sort of intrusive thoughts that were, you know, really making me want to walk and stop and walk, just kind of came and went as well. And so I just sort of accepted that. And I honestly, I can't tell you how kind of, I don't know, enlightening or like empowering that's been, because I know I said in one of the build-up videos, like, I'm a quitter, and that's not very fair to myself, because I've kept going in life in loads of situations that were really hard. And, you know, we all have tremendous amounts of resilience and loads more than we think. But physically, in some of these workouts and some of these runs, what I was, I guess, getting at is I find it really hard to come back from those thoughts of like, this is it, it's too hard. That feeling of fatigue and that feeling of weakness, I kind of am very like, I succumb very easily to like, okay, we'll just stop, call it a day. I don't have much like fight in me after that point. And so I think this was a time where I really learnt what that looks like for me, actually, that it's not about like tapping into some, you know, really toxic non-negotiable about carrying on no matter what. But it was like, okay, approach this with some curiosity, see where it's going, and see if you still feel like this in 5 minutes, see if you still feel like this in 1 mile. And so I think that has been one of the biggest like revelations and sort of game changers for me in terms of what I've learned about myself and what I'm capable of. So I did have to ease off there, and I slowed to 9 something a mile after that, and I could see my overall pace dropping. That's definitely a lie, because I didn't check my overall pace. I knew my overall pace would have dropped because I could see from looking down that I was no longer running 8-minute miles, and I knew that I was just running as fast as I could when my leg hurt that much and doing what I could. So I deliberately for a really long time didn't look at my overall pace. Weirdly, when I turned a corner was at mile 20, and my maths is so bad that I can never work out like what I'm on for, or like, okay, if I run X for the next 2 miles, like what I could get. Like I can't do that. But at mile 20 I knew that it's 10k to go, and I did some really very basic maths, and at that point had looked at my overall pace, and I realised that even if I ran 10-minute miles for the next 10k, I would still get under 3:48, and at this point I didn't know if I was going to get under 4 hours before then. And I had also resigned myself pretty early on to maybe not finishing at all, to certainly not finishing in under 4 hours. And actually a lot of the negative self-talk that I was battling, which I really did keep at bay actually, but what I was kind of staving off, I guess, was like, what if I have to quit? What if I have to stop? You know, what's the story going to be? How am I going to explain that? And so at mile 20, weirdly, when I realised, hang on, even if I ran 10-minute miles for the rest of this, which I haven't done yet, I haven't ran a 10-minute mile yet, but if I ran 10-minute miles for the rest of this, I'd get somewhere under 3:48. I was like, oh, that's fine. I'd be well happy with that. So around then, I made a conscious decision to stick to my goal of not walking, run as best I can for the rest of it, and know that I would get a time that I would be happy with, my first sub-4 marathon, and like I could do it, you know, by my very crap maths, but I could do it by almost just jogging. Now at this point, this is where some of the coaches I know might, you know, tell me off, and actually where it's something that I would want to work on a little bit in future. I do believe that when I realised that oh, I could run a relatively easy pace and still get 3:48, I think I did make a conscious decision to jog the rest of it. I can only describe it as like it was like a survival thing, and like a not wanting to push it and you know, make things any worse than they'd already been, but also a kind of safe and a luxury. And I looked down, I was doing say like 9:20s or something at this point of realisation. I was like, oh, well, I feel really comfortable at 9:20 after 20 miles of running, so I'm just gonna like do this and still get under 3:48. So I would say at that point I didn't have as much of that kind of fight and fire in me, but I felt so much happier than I'd felt in the race so far, that it just felt really good, and I really wanted to enjoy that feeling of like, I know it's not over yet, but like that feeling of success that I hadn't felt so far in the race. Around this point, I also was, overtaking is a strong word, I kind of pulled up beside someone who was really struggling, and I kind of made a few noises to him that I was also struggling, just for a bit of empathy. And he had said, oh, I'm really far off where I wanted to be, and I said, oh, me too. The only goal now is to keep running. Let's just keep running, like, no matter what. And he was like, oh, I wanted 3:30, and I was like, oh, me too. I was like, look, let's just keep moving. And I remember I said to him, it's just a 10k fun run, like just a 10k fun run to go, because I really did have in my head, if I were at a 10k charity fun run right now with these legs, with these lungs, like feeling this tired, and my friend said to me, can you pace me to a 1 hour 10k? I'd be like, yeah, of course. Like, I just felt like I could do that. And so I kind of pictured that the whole way around, like just pacing someone, you know, in that, when you pace somebody when it's your easy pace. I just pictured that I was jogging and taking someone around with me for the rest of the race. And that feeling really got me through, and I saw Nick at like 23 point something miles. I said some sort of delirious, jubilant stuff about, I'm doing brilliantly, I'm going to run the whole thing. And because I realised at that point that I could run the whole thing, which was a huge goal for me, and get my first sub-4 marathon and get a time that I would actually be happy with, certainly compared to what I thought I was looking at earlier, when I thought, I don't know if I'm going to get under 4 here. Now, if this is jarring for you, I apologise, but just imagine how it is for me. In that last scene, it was in lovely 25-degree heat at 9 in the morning, these beautiful surroundings, and now I'm back in this wintry wonderland, leafy, autumnal, wintry Hertfordshire, which is equally beautiful, but it is very cold. I naturally just didn't quite finish the video on holiday for reasons that are too obvious and boring to explain. I was on holiday doing holiday things, so despite being really near the end, I'm going to wrap it up here at home. Okay, so the last 5k of the race, I remember seeing Nick at around mile 23, and again blurting out my delirious, I'm going to run the whole thing.
Yes, any more? Amazing.
Which was like really great, actually. It did then get hard after that. I mean, obviously it had been hard before that, but I did slow at mile 24, which I think is the mile where there's that underpass which everyone talks about, and it's like the route is so flat, but like it is an uphill part of it is in that mile. I think, looking back at my splits, I think that's the only mile that was actually over 10-minute miles. And I think in some of the footage, even for this and on the day, I've kind of made some throwaway comments about like, oh, at that point I was doing over 10-minute miles, but I think there was only 1 mile that was actually over that, which, yeah, again, considering I've never run a marathon faster than a 10-minute mile average, is really, yeah, it just feels really cool to say. So that mile 24 was really difficult. I was just doing what I could and kind of feeling very stiff and very kind of low on stores and energy. I don't know where I've gone. This was a path and now it's not a path. So let's try back out here. And yeah, that was difficult, but it just felt really close to the end, and the crowds were, it's like the only place I feel it's like remotely acceptable to be like, you're nearly there, is in like once you start seeing and, you know, sensing let's try this way, mile 25. And when I could hear, you know, marshals in the crowd being like, just a bit further, just up there, just round that corner, I was like, yeah, it is, it's over, and I'm gonna have run the whole thing. I'm on for, I can't remember at that time, like looking at my watch, what time I could work out I was on for, but I was like, I'm on for a time I'm gonna be proud of. I've just got to keep moving, and then got to, this is like seriously not a path. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going. Oh my God, I'm worried I'm gonna wade into a bog. All right, let me try that way. Oh yeah, that looks like a path again. I'm not in the right footwear for this at all. I doubt I would go round round the lake though. Let's go back. And then you turn into the sort of athletic stadium where the track is, and you know, you just got to do a lap of that track. I think you probably technically run like 300 meters on it, I think. And I think I was the only person on the track at that point, which was obviously a little bit weird and a little bit kind of lonely. You sort of associate a track being with like a group of other people, but yeah, just still a great feeling. And I could hear Charlie, that footage of him filming, like cheering me over the line is so funny.
Come on, Georgie! Come on! Yes!
So I could hear him, like, you know, shouting my name and stuff. I picked it up. I don't think I did any kind of like really intense sprint finish, but I did like a strong. I mean, the footage of me running at the end is, I think, like pretty solid. As you know, Nick, you can decide whether or not you keep this in, but we did compare it, like, you know, remembering back to Nick's finish line footage in Boston, where, you know, yeah, by his own admission, his body had really packed in.
Well done!
4467.
Obviously I was sore, like obviously I was tired, but I like had, you know, something about me that felt strong and able to put in a performance at the end. So getting across that line and just felt brilliant, felt absolutely brilliant, so happy, just absolutely no regrets in that moment at all. What a brilliant feeling, and I've never crossed the line of a marathon feeling like that, and I want to bottle it and I want it to happen again. It's fantastic. So in a nutshell, how I feel about my performance at the Abingdon Marathon is incredibly happy and incredibly proud. And one thing I'm also happy and proud about is that my goal was 16 minutes faster than I managed on the day. Oh, and as a side note, my finishing time was 3:46:02, right? Now, if I'd have like clocked that I was going to be near to the 46 mark, like, would I have put in an even stronger finish just to dip under? Because you just, for the rest of your life, say, oh yes, I've done like a 3:45 marathon. You wouldn't say 3:45:59. You just forget that bit. So I ran, you know, 3:46 dead, whereas my goal was 3:30, and it would be easy to be, like, understandably rather, it would be understandable if someone was really disappointed with that time. But the truth is, I was like most scared, you know, in relative terms, like on this subject, I was most scared of not getting sub 4. I would have been really, I'm sure I would have been really upset and disappointed if I didn't manage to do under 4 hours. I think that was like my kind of cut off in terms of like finding the positivity. I think I genuinely would have struggled if I'd not managed sub 4. Beyond that, 3:50 was like, I was like, okay, like that for me has to be the, I don't know, what would you say, the upper end or the lower end, but of like, I don't want to say acceptable, but you know what I mean, for the sake of this, for the sake of what I wanted. If I would have done slower than 3:50, I would have taken it because it's sub 4, but I would have been, I think I've messed up there. I think I've missed out on something. And you can kind of work the rest out really in sort of 5 and 10 minute chunks. 3:30 genuinely was my like platinum goal. That was my like A+++ goal. And I never really managed in training to zero in on it as much as I wanted. I told you I was like crying in the queue for the loos in the morning and stuff. Like I don't think I ever truly internalized the belief that I could do it. But I tried to, and I tried to kind of practice, like, why not make your platinum goal the goal and not have a plan B and not have a plan C and just bloody run this really ambitious time, which was realistically ambitious, because I think that's important. Like, don't put yourself through an 18-week block if it's, you know, if there's just no way that's gonna happen for you. But why not? Like, why not put that at the forefront? And I'm just so like proud of myself for doing that. And I think I've also talked about how hard it is to, or how worried I was about like sharing that goal, even like in my friendship groups, let alone on a YouTube video. And I've done that, and you know what I've learned? Like, nothing happens, nothing bad happens. Like, even if people do think that it was stupid or silly or you know, delirious or whatever, it's like nothing happens when people think like that. When people think stuff like that, nothing happens to you. It's only a reflection on them, and like, they're entitled to their opinions, obviously, and they might be right, but nothing happens to you. Like, and so I think there is a lesson there in being braver and believing in yourself and being more confident. If I'd have been more conservative, and if I'd have gone for say 3:40, might I be sat here, walking here with a different time today, with a faster time than what I actually got? Maybe. But I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change anything. I don't regret at all setting off and running 8-minute miles and seeing how long I could do it for. Like, I don't know if that sounds weird, but I am really happy that I did that. I also think, all things considered, like having the bad luck with getting the stitch, with getting the random pain that I couldn't attribute to anything. Like, I've never had that pain before, like the leg pain, I mean, between the stitch and the leg thing. That, I mean, I will, you know, try and tweak nutrition and stuff in future, but like, ultimately I got a stitch. Like, I couldn't do anything about that, and my knee locked out when it wasn't supposed to, and that was a surprise. So I think, like, given those things that happened on the day as well, I think if I didn't have those, I genuinely think I would have run 8-minute miles for longer. Like, those are the things that stopped me. So yeah, who knows if those two things didn't go wrong as well. So I think, those things considered, the way that I handled it mentally, I'm really proud of. And one thing I did forget when I was recapping on holiday, there was this moment, this is incredibly cheesy, but when I was struggling with that urge to walk, when my knee locked out and I was getting these urges to walk, and I was trying to manage them without walking, and I was like, what do I, you know, how do I kind of sit with this feeling of wanting to walk without actually walking? And I was like, come on, you're in the blue zone, you're in the blue zone, what's the blue zone all about? And I just said to myself, in the blue zone we run. Which is cheesy, but I just kept coming back to that. In the blue zone we run. I'm in the blue zone, what do I do here? You run, and that's all. It's as simple as that. You just run. If you're dragging that leg along, if you're hobbling but you're technically running, then you're doing the right thing. And I think overall, how much I've learned about myself, how I can overcome like mental kind of obstacles and barriers, and to find enjoyment and like a less stressful way of training for something like that, I'm just really proud of. So I wouldn't change anything, and I'm incredibly happy with my 43-minute PB. I mean, just that feels so good to say. I'm really proud of that. I'm obviously a completely different person physically and mentally than I was when I did my previous times. And so, yeah, how could I be cross? It's brilliant. So before we wrap up, just a few more words on Abingdon as an event, the Abingdon Marathon. If it isn't clear already, like, just to say I absolutely loved it and would highly recommend it. It's incredibly flat, the support is brilliant. For a small event, as in like for a club event, like that are not these huge big corporate, you know, races that are, yeah, like bigger basically, I don't think that the crowd support was small like you would understandably expect it to be. I don't do well with huge crowds anyway, so it obviously depends on who you are and what you like, but I personally found there was more than enough kind of groups of like what looked like either club members or families, you know, friends, relatives, cheering their loved ones on, but obviously everyone else along the way as well. And the loop nature of it, so I don't know if Nick will get a map up or link to a map or something, but
Yes, of course.
the loop that you do, so you run the loop twice before, like obviously you run out from the start and do the loop twice and then go into the finish. that nature of it makes it really easy to spectate. So you'll have seen from the other video how many times Nick got round to see us. So if you do have people there, it's really easy for them to get around and see you a few times. And equally, because there's people doing that there with their relatives, if you don't have anyone there, you'll get loads of cheers from those people as well. So we found it, yeah, great to spectate at. The HQ was really well run. The support at the water stations, which were every 3 miles. At one point, I think there was like a 2-mile gap even. So never more than 3 miles without a water station. There was isotonic drinks that were really clearly labelled as well, like you knew if you were getting water or if you were getting the isotonic drink. And the cheer and the banter there was just brilliant. So, because I've read before about, you know, some lonely stretches and stuff, like, I don't know, I just don't remember that. I don't remember feeling kind of isolated, or I know those parts of marathons that are quite famous for being a bit like barren and just kind of, oh, you're on your own with your thoughts, but it just went really quickly, maybe because I ran 43 minutes faster than I've ever run one before, so maybe it just went a bit quicker, but also, you know, you just knew every 3 miles at least you were going to get some banter, you were going to get, you know, some contact, some cheer, and that just felt like enough, along with, like I say, the loads of, you know, friends and family and stuff that were out as well. So I, yeah, highly recommend it as an event. Well organised, brilliant atmosphere, super flat. We had bad luck with the weather, but again, like personally, I didn't feel too affected by it. I mean, I know this isn't a reflection on the race anyway, but I think, you know, the HQ has lots of indoor space as well, so technically you could, you know, find lots of indoor like shelter and places to get changed and showered and stuff before and after. So yeah, even if you did have bad luck with the weather, I just think it's well set up for that. Fantastic, and I would definitely recommend and would definitely return. So huge thank you to everyone who put that together, and long may it continue, because there's not many marathons or runs, races like that around. So brilliant job, really, really great. So in terms of what's next for me, it's been a few weeks now since the marathon. I've largely escaped unscathed. My hip is a little bit unhappy. It's kind of coming and going, sort of pain. I'm getting there. So I'm kind of working around that and managing that. But as you've probably guessed from my kind of happiness, like at the finish line, and my sort of positive thoughts and feelings about it, I would love to have another go. I would absolutely love to have another go. And at the moment, I think I would like to have another go at Abingdon. I think I would just like to go back there and do that again. A year's a long time, so I'm not gonna get, you know, I don't wanna like get too like tunnel vision on something at this stage, but the feeling I'm enjoying is, it has left me with a feeling of, I'd love to do that again. I'd love to do that exact race again, because I just think it was a really great event and I really enjoyed it. And also I kind of know what to expect now, like I can visualize it. So that's floating around in my head. Really trying to stave off the urge to do a spring marathon. I just need to let my body recover and also do much more base training than I did before my Hansen plan. So yeah, at the moment I'm really enjoying going back to CrossFit and, you know, starting to do more strength training than I'd done certainly towards the end of the marathon plan when I dropped it off the last week, then went on holiday and all the rest of it. So yeah, I'm excited to sort of get back into that. I've gone for a couple of jogs, but yeah, as I say, my hip is hurting when I run at the moment. So it's, yeah, I'm gonna see how that goes, but definitely, yeah, I'm keen to carry on running, to do more, and just to see what's next. Also just wanted to give a shout out to Charlotte from Stonehenge Striders, really cool running club name by the way, who came over and said hello, like not long after I'd crossed the line, as just someone who's been like watching the videos, and yeah, it was just so lovely. That was just such a lovely feeling, and it was just really kind of you, and it was really nice to have a chat and hear how brilliantly you got on as well. Congrats on your PB, and I think was just like a really affirming moment of just like what a lovely community the running community is. Right, so that's it. Abingdon wrapped up, recapped. Gonna go and put my feet up, enjoy a nice autumnal day indoors with tea. Thank you so much to everyone who has watched our videos and continues to send us lovely messages and support us. You're all brilliant. This is a really great thing to be a part of. So yeah, we'll see you on the next one. I'm not sure if I'm filming. I don't know what's going on. Tell me what's going on.